Hey family, welcome to Divine Destiny. I'm David.
And I'm Deborah.
We're here to encourage, equip, and empower.
So come on, let's get into it.
Hey family, David and Deborah here. The time has finally, I got so excited that I didn't hit the mic. The time has finally come. We are here to just share our story, how God brought us together.
Yes.
It is going to be a couple episodes, a couple videos. It is lengthy, so much details. This is going to be like your favorite book of the Bible or your favorite book that you never want to put down, that you never want to stop reading. Mm-hmm. So buckle up and get ready.
Get ready. Yes, and we're so happy for you guys to be here with us, to hear our testimony, and because it's about to get crazy. Like, you've never heard a story like this before. Never in your entire life. So buckle up. Here we go.
So let's jump in. How we met, part 1. All right, so this is a time range of March 2022 to December 2022. And Deborah is going to start this off. She's going to take it away. Let's go.
Okay, so how it started for me before we even met, or before I even knew he existed, was in March of 2022 is when a couple of pastors that I've known since I was 16 years old, they came into town. They were preaching at a church, so I went to go visit them, and I went to go see them. I was like, hey, I haven't seen you guys since I was like 16. I'm in my 20s now. I would love to see you guys. So I went, and everything, and then like at the end of the service, they called me up to the front, and I was like, oh my gosh. So they ended up giving me a word, right? They ended up speaking into my life and different things like that. And then at the end of that word, this is one thing I was not expecting. The pastor said, and concerning your husband, he's coming. You don't even have to worry about him. He's coming. And that is the first word that I had ever gotten concerning a significant other, because I know in this day and time, like people need to be very careful about prophesying spouses and different things like that, because as humans, like, God has given us free will. So if something doesn't come to pass, we only want to say like, oh, they lied, or God lied.
Disappointment.
or
frustration,
frustrations. We don't want to create any disappointments. So when that was told to me, I'm not going to lie, I took it with a grain of salt, and I was kind of like, yeah, okay. I was like, yeah, okay, whatever.
God going to have to come down and tell her herself. Come into that bedroom.
That's literally what I was thinking. I was like, the good Lord Jesus is going to have to come down.
The good Lord Jesus. She's so country.
And tell me himself. Okay, so that happened, and then literally not even 3 months goes by. This evangelist that I'm friends with on Facebook, he just felt led to message me on Facebook, and he just gives me a word of encouragement, and then he just starts speaking into my life and giving me a word and different things like that. And at the end of that word, he said, concerning your husband, God, he said, concerning your husband, you don't even have to worry about him. He's actually going to complement what you have to do and what you're called to do. He's not even going to interrupt anything. Like, you don't even have to worry about that. So that's the second time within like 2 months.
Number 2.
Within 2 months. That's the second time in 2 months. So now it's like really getting my attention. So I'm like, okay.
God is speaking.
No, like... God, you're speaking. Okay. So now like my ears are up now, and I'm really like paying attention. Like, okay, maybe I should like start praying into this, because this is the second time. And then a few months later, not even 4, like a few months later, my young adult pastor at my church, he gives me and 2 other people in the parking lot of our church a word after one of our meetups we had with young adults that night.
I wonder how did that end? How was that? How did that end? What happened at the end of that in September of 2022?
That was in September. Yes. Okay. So after that, after like our whole meetup and everything, like after he gave us the word in the parking lot, he said to me literally almost the same exact words that the two other people said to me, the pastor and the evangelist said to me. He said he was a little nervous, and if he sees this video, he knows who I'm talking about. You know who I'm talking. I'm talking to you. You know who we're talking about. He looks at me. He says, "All right, I'm gonna say this." And your husband, God's already got it figured out. He's already got it worked out. You don't have to worry. And that's the third word I got within a span of 6 to 7 months.
Wow. Now, what is super amazing about that timeline, September 2022, I'm going to share a little bit of my portion. And then there's a little detail that she left out. We're going to go back to the month of August after we're done in September. So again, September 2022, I have never seen Deborah in my life. I did not know who she was. So at this time, I'm living in Orlando, Florida, and my parents and my family, they live in Miami. And so what's crazy, it was September 14th. As many of you may know, I'm a traveling musician. And so at this time, I don't think Deborah remembers this, but from that week, I had an opportunity to go to Grapevine, Texas. I was going to do a corporate event there. And I was like, man, it's awesome. I love Texas. Let's go. But it did not end up happening. And so I thought, out of all the places that I could have gone, Grapevine, Texas, again, never see her, never knew her, didn't know. I'm sorry, this got sound bad, but I didn't even know that there was a Deborah in the Bible until I met Deborah. Oh my gosh. I'm sorry. Don't hold it against me. All right, cool. So that event was canceled. And so I go down to Miami. And my mom had been trying to get me to go to her church for a long time. Very powerful church in Miami. And so
shout out to Miss Vanessa. We love you.
Shout out to Mama
Shout out
V.
to Mama V.
Mama V in the house. Shout out to my dad too. I love my dad.
Yes,
he's amazing.
We love you guys.
Yes. So we finally went to the church. I was off for a week. I spent a week in Miami. So it was a Wednesday night. I go to my mom's church. The apostle's getting ready to close the service, and he goes, "Hey, you, come here, pastor." And I was like, "What?" And he was like, "Where I know you from?" I've never seen this man in my life. Don't know him. I've never been to this church. So
what was your reaction like when he called you?
I was like, okay, I know I'm a pastor. I was getting ready to go home. We were about to do the benediction. My mind was already, and we had an amazing service. Let's go home. I'm going to get some chicken. I'm hungry. I probably was fasting that day. And he literally points me out. I was wearing this green like little hoodie. And he's like, "Come here, pastor." And he's like, "Put your hands up." And so he just starts speaking on time, very accurate word. And so at the end of that word, he says these exact words: "Your time being by yourself is getting ready to come to an end. It is getting ready to come to an end. Your spouse is waiting for you." He said your spouse is waiting for you, and it is important to take heed to the instructions that God has for you.
Because the season of you being by yourself is almost over. It's crazy. Because your mate is waiting for you.
And I was sitting there. I'm at this point. I'm done.
He was a waterfall.
I cry. But
we can appreciate men who cry. Like,
yes.
Men, don't be afraid to cry. Like, it's literally okay. Like, if you're with a woman that's not okay with you crying, like, she needs help.
Man, but I was crying. It was super confirming. And that, a message that I can take from that is just be in the right place at the right time. when God tells you to go somewhere, you just never know, especially when you're praying and you need confirmation. Your
Yes.
confirmation, your answer, your peace can be in that service that you've never been to that church. You just thinking, and so that's the cool thing about prophecy and confirmation, that God a lot of times can raise that expectation, because when we're waiting and we don't see anything in front of us, I didn't see any candidate. I didn't see any solid candidates. She probably didn't either. And so to get a word that your spouse is coming, or God has it figured out, you're like, God, I don't see anyone in front of me. What are you talking about?
No one in sight.
No one in sight.
It's like being in a tunnel. It's like, God, I don't even see the light at the end of this tunnel, and you're speaking a word to me right now while I'm in the dark. Yeah. That's exactly how it felt. That's the best way to describe it. When we both got our words the same exact month, I got mine a couple weeks after his, or a couple weeks before his. And that's literally how it was for me, because at that point I was like, okay, God, like, before I even started getting those words, I was like, okay, God, I know I'm supposed to be married. I know I'm supposed to have kids. You showed me all these things and what I'm called to do. But there's like literally no one inside. All these relationships that I had attempted in the past had
counterfeits.
Failed.
Run.
They have failed. They really have failed. So when I started getting those words, God's like, okay, knowing me, I'm going to need to tell her more than one time, because I know this is my daughter. I know how she is. So we're going to confirm it a couple of more times. So by the time that when he comes, she'll know. And the detail that he mentioned in August, after I got that second word from the evangelist, I was like,
faith.
okay. I was like, yeah, no, seriously. I was like, okay, I'm going to act on faith, and I'm going to go ahead and buy my bridal shower dress.
With not a man
in
nothing
sight, y'all.
in sight.
I had never done anything like this before. I had bought, not my wedding dress. Let me make that clear. It wasn't a wedding dress. It was a bridal shower dress, to where I saw myself at a bridal shower. I was like, I know what the words that had been spoken to me already. So I'm going to act on faith, and I'm going to purchase my bridal shower dress, which is really cute, by the way. So yeah, that major and small minor detail that I did in August, just out of an act of faith. Wow. And I think a lot of the times, in like while we're waiting and while we're in the middle of a word being made manifest, it's like, okay, God's like, how are you stewarding this word? Are you acting in faith? Are you praying over this word? Are you warring with this word? And my act of like buying my bridal dress was me stewarding that word. It was me acting on faith.
That's faith. And I believe that's definitely what God calls us to. And it's funny, as we're recording this today, I literally put up a word today. 2 Corinthians 5:7 says, for we walk by faith and not by sight. And so those moments, or that moment when she went and she bought that bridal dress, that was an act of faith.
It looks crazy.
Because sight and because life and circumstance says, why would you buy that? You probably ain't got the money to buy it. What are you doing right now? You're not even courting. You're not dating. There's no prospects. But that act of faith, God responds to faith. God responds to obedience. Yeah. And so, those acts in buying a dress, or, stepping out on faith, it really gives something God to work with. Yeah. Something for God to work with. And I'm telling you, he will respond. And when we do those things and we steward the words, and I'll get into this important thing for us, that it was to our benefit and to confirmation when God would give us dreams or different things that we did, that we documented them. So if that's a tip, that's a key that we can give, not even just for relationship, God ordained things, anything in life. God gives you a dream, whether it seems weird or not, write it down, document it, timestamp it, because at a certain point, it will come to pass. And there's
Yes.
nothing like being able to look back and say, God gave me this dream in XYZ, and I can see it
Yeah.
in physical manifestation now.
Right. And speaking of dreams, David was actually the first one to have a dream. Not just
Crazy
about
dream.
me. We'll get into that in the second portion. But for now, what are some dreams did you start having as early as October?
Okay, so in October 2022, so just to give a little context, you're probably asking, how did we meet?
Like, how did he even know I existed?
How do I even know
by October?
that she existed? So long short, it ain't gonna be boring because it's very interesting. So shout out to Jenny Weaver and the core group mentorship.
Hey.
So my connection, how I even saw Deborah, but this is before I even saw Deborah, but I was able to connect with her and see her just by Jenny Weaver and the core group mentorship. I was a minstrel, still am, for that ministry. And so I'm going to give context, I'm going to give dates, and you're going to be like, whoa. So this was October 10th, 2022. I had this dream, in short. Basically, I was on the run, and I was on a military base, and I was running, and finally I got a chance to take a seat, and I sat in between these cars, and I'm just catching my breath. And just to kind of paint a picture, there was this digital billboard. You know, if you see like businesses, it'll say, hey, ABC
Those
Auto
huge billboards
Transmission,
alongside
and
the
then it'll go
highways.
next to Christ Community Church or whatever. And so I remember seeing this prophetess that I used to listen to. Her name is Dr. Alexis, who lives in Texas.
Dallas, yeah.
And so at that time, I saw her face, and I literally saw "Get the Ring." And I was like, what in the world? And so at that point, in my dream, I literally was like, whoa. And I take out my phone, and I was like, no, in my head, I'm like, nobody's going to believe this. So I take out my phone, and I put it up to the billboard. I was like, I need to see this again. I'm going to take a snapshot when it comes by. It didn't come by again. So I was
You
like,
missed it.
okay, God, I took it, And so that was like October 10th. So maybe a couple days after that, I stepped out on faith. I went to K Jewelers. I'm not dating. There's no one in sight. And I was like, hey, God, I trust you so much. I didn't have the finances at that time. I mean, you talking about crazy faith, no one in sight, no finances at that time. I was like, God, the Holy Spirit is our best friend. He gives us intel, knowledge, information. So I was like, hey, God, it would be amazing if you would even tell me what kind of ring my spouse wants, the cut. I was believing that way. And I was like, I don't have the finances right now. It'd be really cool if I met someone at the jewelry store and was like, hey, man, I want to buy your ring. That's literally
We
how
all
my
wish that could happen, right?
It's possible. Faith,
It is-
favor.
it is possible.
And we will
We
share
will-
something with you a little later that's going to be like, whoa, this is real. This is really our life. If there's one thing I want you all to know about us, we don't have to sugarcoat. We don't have to take away or add anything
lived
from our
this.
story to make you believe or make it. This is really us.
This is what
We
happened.
don't have to. This literally happened, and it doesn't make any sense to us, but to God, it makes all the sense in the world.
So going back to October, I don't want you to skip over this because a lot of people don't know this, but I want you to share it too.
Are we
But
talking about retreat?
no, not retreat. It was before you even had met me. There was a season that you went through before you even got to a place to where you were ready to receive me.
Are you talking about the counterfeit?
Yes.
Okay.
We have to. I want you to talk about the counterfeit because I don't even know if some people think that's a thing, but that is absolutely
It's
a thing.
really a thing.
Like, receiving a counterfeit, the enemy always will send you something that looks like what you want, talks like what you want, dresses like what you want,
The
sounds like
counterfeit
what you
sometimes
want.
looks better than the real
actual thing.
That is so deceiving.
So deceiving. Okay.
So I don't. Okay, this is gonna be a 2-part thing, because in this lesson that I learned is when you have dreams, pure interpretation, not your flesh, not your feeling,
It's
not your
needed.
emotions. Don't be led by that, but a true
Yeah.
interpretation. God, what are you saying? What do you mean? What do you need me to know is important. So at this time, I've always been
Dreamer.
a dreamer. And so, speaking to the counterfeit, there was this young lady. There's this young lady that I felt like she was my wife, and so I was in that place. And that's the other thing, we have to make sure we die to our flesh, because when we are in that place of expectation, what we want, what we desire can form our dreams, and then we're like, okay, God, you're saying
Yes.
this, and that's the wrong thing or the
Dangerous place
wrong
to
person.
be.
And so at that time in my life, there's a lot of knowledge that I didn't have, and I was probably even premature in my perception and my understanding of what God was saying.
Yeah.
And so another thing that I learned is that you will never be challenged in an area that the enemy knows that you desire or that's before you. I wanted marriage so bad. I had idolized that thing at that time. And even the Lord told Deborah that at one point, and that's later down the line.
Before I even met him.
But so with that dream, I had a couple dreams, and so I felt like that person was my spouse. And I'm the type of person, I hold on to things. If God shows me something, I'm gonna hold on to it until He tells me
With a
otherwise.
tight grip.
So I didn't see any other things. And now looking back at the dreams that I had, none of them spoke to marriage. But because I wanted marriage so bad, my mind, my life, my thoughts were like, oh, she's the one.
It's like you were looking for even the smallest inkling of like, oh, this points to marriage, when God has always spoken very clear to you concerning things, but those dreams weren't clear.
Yeah. I mean, you can't take a dream of you holding hands with someone
You'd be like, oh, that's
and be like,
marriage.
no.
No,
And that was like one of the dreams that I had. And so, yeah. So at that point, what I can say from that is I've had dreams, and when God gives you a dream, it's something about holding that. And
Yeah.
because I had that dream at that time, it allowed me to keep away the counterfeits and keep away the other people, because if I just had free will, I could have picked anyone. And so
which you do have free will, and you
We
could
do.
have picked
I could
anyone,
have picked
but because God knew He didn't want you to pick anyone else.
didn't want me to pick anyone
He
else.
didn't want you to pick anyone
And
else.
even though that was a counterfeit, looking back, I stewarded that word. I stewarded those dreams. I stewarded just praying and doing certain things because that's all that I knew. I knew that would yield me the best result. And so looking back now, words of knowledge are so important. The
Powerful.
gifts
Very
are
powerful.
so imperative and so important and to our benefit, because it
Yeah.
helps us. And so looking back, that person that I saw in my dream was never my person, but God wanted to see, would you steward the dream? Would you steward the visions?
Yeah.
Would you steward when I tell you to pray or to do certain things? And so, so let's now jump out of that and go to, October 10th, I had that dream where I was in a military base. And so at this time we had it's now October 14th, 15th. I think it was the 14th and the 15th, we had a core retreat meetup. So this was in Orlando. This is where a gathering at this time The man and the children weren't even involved. This was just
women.
Can you imagine 1,500
Thousands of women, hundreds of women,
and no more than 10 men in a building? It was me. It was Rad on the keys. Steven was there, and maybe security. That was it. 1,500 women. And let me tell you, I'll be honest. And so coming in, I didn't know who Deborah was. I didn't see her.
That was my first core retreat, by the way. My very first core retreat.
Isaiah Saldivar was the speaker,
one of the
guest
speakers,
speaker.
yeah.
Awesome time. And so what was crazy at that time, like I said, I was looking for a wife, y'all. And so 1,500 women saved, filled with the Holy Ghost. You know, I'm like,
he was scoping the scape.
I was scoping out. I
loved
worship. Oh my gosh. I was like, oh, lift your hands, everybody. I was looking for them left hands. Who got the ring on? Who doesn't? Okay, she look good. She don't. She look like she got a little. She got that now. But so we're gonna fast forward to how. So again, I'm kind of looking, all right, just in case, But God, deep down inside, I felt like at that time I knew who my wife was. And so there was this moment in worship where everything just kind of shut down, and I was just worshiping God. We weren't playing or nothing at this time. And I literally looked to my right side. I looked up and I see Deborah. And literally, y'all, this is very serious. It was like I saw a halo. It was like there was just this light that shined down, and all I could say was, whoa. And at that moment, the first thing I literally said was, that is my wife. I literally said, that is my wife. Seriously. And so I was like, wow. And I went back into worship. I didn't let it distract me, nothing. And so
he didn't see me no more after that, which is crazy, because that was that the first session that night?
That was the first
session.
Night.
Then we had like a few more after that.
Yeah.
And I was sitting toward the front the whole retreat, and that is the only time he ever saw me, which is crazy.
And the crazy thing is, we had mutual friends and people that we knew. I remember, Haley and Raven and Jennifer. And so Deborah was with Haley, so there was no reason that we shouldn't have met. And so I saw her, then Haley, Raven, we're all in the circle kind of chatting, meeting for the first time. And Deborah was nowhere in sight. No? So there's something about the vibe. The timing is imperative, because in our lives and in that time, it was like there's no reason.
There's no reason why that shouldn't have happened.
I could have seen her, whatever. And I never gave this detail. So a couple of days before retreat, I was on social media. I followed, some of our friends. We're a family, we follow mutual people. Mm-hmm. And I remember they went to this Mexican place. This was like a day before.
It was the day we flew in.
And so I'm just kind of on social media. And I remember they were at this Mexican place. I saw Haley. I believe you were sitting next to Haley. You were sitting next to Haley. Mm-hmm. It was Haley. It was Becca. It was Sharon, Raven. And so I remember, I believe Sharon had posted it and she tagged everybody that was there. And so I remember, I'll never forget. You know what's crazy? I think you had your hair just like this, and she had on some glasses. And I remember I was like, who's that black girl with the glasses? And I literally was like, she is beautiful. And so let me tell you, I was so determined to find out who she was. And so
I wasn't tagged in that story either.
That's crazy. And so I literally searched everybody that was tagged. I was like, okay, Brianna, that's not her. Haley, that's not her. Raven. And I was going crazy. I was like, where is this woman? Is she not tagged? I was counting the amount of people tagged at the table. And
the math ain't mathing.
The math wasn't mathing. And I was like, it was almost like it left this impression. I was like, I have to know who she is. She just really caught my eye. And the thing is, seriously, it was way more than beauty. There's just something about being a prophetic person too. You see beyond the outside.
Outer appearance, yeah.
Her spirit was so pure. Like, I was like, man, she really loves Jesus. Like there's just, and there's a lot of times in the timing that there's things that you don't even understand. You just know, like, I have peace about that. I had peace about her. I was like, I want to know her. And again, beauty is awesome. I think that's the Lord created women that way as men, for us to grab the attention. But, you know, search within. It's way more, please don't look or think that it's about beauty. But there was just something that I knew that I didn't know fully, that I was just like, man, she's beautiful. You know, there's something that I feel that I've never felt when I looked at a woman, and it wasn't lustful. It was pure. It was beautiful. And yeah, I love you too. There was just something beautiful, and I was like, man, I need to know who she is. And so fast forward, like I said, saw her, and so that was just kind of that. Mm-hmm. And I think in a matter of those days before the retreat had left out, we're still in October. Yeah. I think I stumbled across her. I finally was able to stumble across her profile. I'm not sure. Oh, this is probably what happened. So you have a powerful evangelist by the name of Jenny Weaver who has a women's mentorship group. My mind is like, she must know some really beautiful, powerful, saved women.
Saved and
so
sanctified.
I literally went through her, who she was following, because I'm like,
is she seeking?
I mean, seek ye first the kingdom of heaven and his righteousness, literally, and all these things will be added unto you.
He was trying to get his addition.
In that all, I know the wife is included. So I knew if I would seek God, and I would seek that friends list of who she was following, I was going to find her. And you know what's funny? I actually did. I seeked and I found, yes. So I stumbled upon the list of who she was following, and I was just kind of sensing who, I would look, and I was like, oh, nah. And I stumbled upon her page, and I was with Rad at the time, and I was like,
I remember this story.
Oh my gosh, that's her. I said, that's Deborah. And I remember when I clicked on her profile, I'll never forget this picture. There was a picture she had on this sundress, and she was sitting at this coffee table, and I didn't even see her face. It was like a side view, and she had this natural style bun. Oh, I love the bun. Boop. And so I'm looking at that, and I was like, oh my gosh. And there was this radiating light. There was this thing that I felt. And the first thing I said, it was like, oh, she's pure and she loves Jesus for real. And so I was like, whoa, this is insane. And I will never forget that moment as long as I live. And so then we fast forward. Jenny now goes to Nigeria with Apostle Tommy. And so we're just kind of going through, and I didn't say anything. I was like, God, and in my time, I'm just kind of, and I was in that place too, that I was like, I wasn't sure that the person that I had seen at that time in my dreams was my person. So I was like, God, I would like for you to release me from this. Or if this is my person, make it clear, whatever. Yeah. So again, I'm stewarding that word. I'm stewarding dreams. I'm, not even word. I'm stewarding dreams from what I felt or what I thought. And so it happened where Jenny writes me and was like, hey, she's in Nigeria now. And this is so random. She's in Nigeria, and she was like, hey, there's this woman of God. She's just a nice woman of God. I'm just throwing this out there. And I was like, thank you, but no thank you. I appreciate it. And I literally said to her, and we have screenshots of this. And you know what? We're going to attach a screenshot of this in this video. Timestamps and all. And so I said, no thank you. And so I said, since we're on this subject, I do have a woman of God I want to ask you about. And she's like, she gives the eye emojis, and she's like, who? And so I said, Deborah. And she's like, whoa. If you know Jenny, you know her reactions. She'll hit you with that egg. I don't even know if I pronounced it right. Eek. Yes, that is the response of excitement. Like, whoa, you got my attention. And so I said, Deborah. And she was like, oh my gosh, did you meet her? And I said, no. And I said, she caught my eye. And she just, at that point, Jenny gave me the rundown. She's open to dating. You know, she just went on she's a pure holiness woman of God. And she says,
Jenny put me on the market.
I mean, ready, details, stats. The only thing I probably didn't know at that time was her credit score and where she lived. You know, I'm just exaggerating, but
oh my God.
She gave me the rundown, and she had to let me know that, hey, Deborah just went on a 1-year break, social media break for a year. She keeps me updated and all those things. And so I said, wow, she really caught my eye. And I said, I feel like I know who my wife is. And I said, before I jump into or I do anything, I want to make sure that this is not it. I was just, again, there I am stewarding that. But I knew deep down, I was like, yes. But I did not want to prematurely, make a decision about Deborah or act on it. I'm always led by what is God saying. God, no matter how good this looks, if this is not for me,
if this is not
my
your
person,
will,
remove it. Don't let me go for it. I only want the perfect will of God. And this is one thing, even in that I've learned, my mom shared with me, there are many people that seem like good candidates, but
great candidates,
but that is not your person.
They're not God candidates.
So
they're not God's choice for you.
Why settle for the permissible will of God when you could have his perfect will? Yeah. If the perfect will of God for us is to affect, impact, encourage 1 million souls, a million marriages,
then that's what we want.
That's what we want.
But we don't want to settle for the 100,000.
100,000 is cool.
It's great.
Why be a millionaire when you could be a quadruple billionaire? I don't even know if that was
Okay, but back to what you were talking about in October, and even what's the next dream you had a couple of months even after that?
Next dream.
In December.
In December.
Ooh la la.
I had in December, on Christmas Eve, to be exact, I had a dream that I proposed, and it was a core retreat setting. And so there's so many things that are crazy about that. At that time, I'm still kind of holding on to that word, or that dream that God had given me. No details, but I sensed that I was on my way out. And I told God, I said, I'm not going into this new year uncertain. And so I was like, God, I ask you to confirm or to release. And so while I'm doing that, I'm just feeling certain things. And so Christmas Eve retreat is going on. And let me show you, let me express how tricky this was. The person that I felt like was my wife also knew Jenny, also followed Jenny. So, and it was like, oh man, she could come to retreat, or she could be a part. We could be in the same. So I was like, okay, God, that's dope.
And I'll also say, you see how sneaky the enemy is? You literally have the same mutual friends, the same everything.
Yes.
And now your mind begins to put them into your own desire and the own will that you see. So it's really important not to shape your future around what you desire. It needs to be what God desires.
Yeah.
It has to be.
So had that dream proposing. I'm in Florida at this time. And would you like to share what happened in your world on 2022 of December on Christmas Eve? So let me give context again. Me and Deborah haven't even spoke at this time. Don't know any details about her life.
The most at this point is that he saw me. That's it. We have not had verbal contact. We have not communicated. We have not had conversations.
I had no dreams about her. No, nothing.
Nothing.
So what happened on Christmas Eve in 2022?
So on my end,
all the way in Dallas, Texas.
All the way in Dallas, Texas on this side, that is when my sister ended up getting engaged on that day.
That's
literally
crazy.
that day he had that dream was the day my sister was being proposed to. And when I shared that detail with him once we got together, he was like, "Are you serious? No way." I was like, "Yes way."
That's crazy.
Like, just, it was absolutely insane. And I'll even share like how he went through his whole process of dealing with counterfeits. I had my own process of dealing with the counterfeit because my thing was I desired to be with someone that I can do ministry with, travel with, all these things. And God put those desires in my heart. Those weren't just things that I wanted. Those were desires that God gave me. And when I thought I had that, I started to pursue that. And I'll even, transparency is one of our pillars.
Yes.
My parents shut it down immediately.
Oh boy.
Immediately. And it's not like I'm a grown woman. I'm 29 years old. So it's not like they were like, "Oh no, you're not going to be in this relationship." They prayed about it and they gave me wise counsel.
That's important.
And they brought back to words that we had even got over our family that didn't line up with what I thought was the will of God at the time. So my parents gave me wise counsel. They kind of not even shut it down. They gave me wise counsel, and then they told me what they saw, and then at the end of the day the Lord showed me too, and then that whole thing was shut down before the new year had started. So by this time he's having dreams about proposing to someone.
Hold on, no, okay, I'm sorry. I
yes,
thought you was going into part 2 of this thing. Oh, no. It's good. Okay, we still in 2022.
We're still in December.
Power packed.
So he had a dream about proposing to someone at a core retreat. Meanwhile, over on my end, this whole thing with the counterfeit that I experienced had just ended as well.
Timing.
So timing is so imperative, because I've even witnessed even some people that I know, their lives being tied up with a counterfeit and delaying the real thing of what God has. So let's say that he decided to still try to pursue this other person, and I still try to pursue this other person. Meanwhile, God's like, no, I have someone else for you. You're delaying the promise and the gift, the actual perfect will that I have for you. So that's another little nugget that I'll even add in there, is like, don't delay the promises of God just because you're holding on so tightly to your own will and to your own desire of what you want. Like, surrender your will, surrender everything, surrender your dreams, surrender your desires, your thoughts, everything to the Lord, and he'll show you. And sometimes the result isn't even what we might want, but on the other side of that it's greater.
We have to stick it through, and just being able to then see, as we follow suit, as we follow God and trust even the uncomfortable places and things, when we're like in ourselves, like, but God, this guy's a worship pastor, and da-da-da-da. We go to the same whatever.
Right.
It's like, this is perfect. Mm-hmm. And so, there was one thing that you said about surrendering your will. I think one thing I've learned, and I think that is beneficial to people, because our flesh and our emotions and our own desires can get in the way, is when God gives you something, and it may be overwhelming or whatever, or you're not sure, let it die. Just like our flesh, our desires needs to die, and say, God, I trust that I will not miss who you have for me. I will not miss what's for me.
Yeah.
And so just being able to put it down shows a lot about your trust that you have in God. And so even when you're able to do that, it allows you to be humble, because so many people, and I'll say this too, even as you mentioned your parents, having accountability, having people around you to say, watch out for this counterfeit, having prophetic people, having people who have positive, pure motives to say,
Godly
hey girl,
counsel.
hey man, I had this dream that you were going to get into this relationship, or that you were about to make this decision, and I care for you, and I love you. I need to share this with you.
Yeah.
That is so important. Having parents who pray and intercede and know what God has spoken to them for their children
Right.
and for their lives. And so I think that's so amazing. That's another nugget. Don't be so caught in your desires and your preferences and your wants, because the reality is, it's not even about what you want.
It's not about us. Like,
it's not about us.
We're sitting here today because of God and his perfect plan, and because of what we've been called to do to advance the kingdom of God. Yeah. This isn't about us. We're just here to share wisdom in our process and how we can help other people possibly not even make some of the mistakes we made along the way, to help you make the right decisions and help you make wise decisions. Because I think a lot of the times when people make decisions in a relationship, a lot of people think making good decisions are enough, which is great, but it's wisdom, having wisdom in relationships and finding that person that God has for you and being led by the Spirit ultimately is what's going to lead you into the will of God, is living in wisdom. Like the Bible says, let her, in my own words, I would say, let her be your best friend. Let you be guided by the spirit of wisdom.
Yeah. And, this was a power-packed, amazing.
It was.
I don't want to say episode. We could say episode video.
Yeah.
This is only part one.
This is only part one.
Guys, gals, this ain't even got good yet. This ain't even got good yet. We don't want to make this too long, but this is part one. This is March 2000. The Genesis, the beginning, the very inception.
Yeah.
It's only gonna get gooder and gooder, better and better.
Gooder and gooder.
Wow, it's just
better.
so super amazing. There's so much more to come, so much more to share.
Yeah.
And again, we hope that you are encouraged, you're equipped, empowered, that God would increase your faith and your expectation that if he has spoken a promise of marriage to you and for you, you will see it, you will know it, you will touch it, you will have it. And I think we should.
And I think it's really important to, when you receive those words, if you've gotten any words, it's important to pray over those words, steward those words, war over those words, because we know that in this time, as God's putting kingdom people together and to advance his plan and his agenda, we know the enemy's going to end up fighting against that. So it's really important to establish yourself in prayer before you even meet someone. Establish yourself in the word of God before you even meet someone. Yes, heal, because you don't want someone to receive a half you. You want someone to receive a whole you.
Yeah.
So when you come together, it's two whole people.
It's a fountain and it's not a drain. You guys are just adding. You're complementing each other.
It's not a fountain. It's not a drain. It's a fountain.
It's a fountain. You're just pouring love. You're serving. You're helping.
Yeah.
And this is the last thing we'll say before we shut this down. There's something about being in the perfect will of God with the perfect person, the right person, the divine person, is that no matter what they've been through, no matter what they've seen, no matter how they've been discouraged or disappointed in past experiences, you have the grace. When God brings you all together, you have the grace. There will even be an ease over you and for you all to just deal with what the other has struggled with, what the other has gone with. And we can go on forever, and we can go into a whole nother thing about that. But we're going to shut this down here. It's not over.
It's not over. That was just part one.
Part one, how we met.
Part one of how we met. But at this point, we ain't even met yet.
But God placed.
But God had, it's like God was doing things, and he was orchestrating things before we met, which is going to be in the next part 2. So stay tuned, because you don't want to miss this. It's going to be so powerful, and it's just going to be so raw and real.
Raw and real.
Raw and real.
No ad, no
We're not going to take
adding,
anything
taking.
out.
This is real life.
This is real.
Real life. And none of us can take credit for it. God gets all the glory for everything that has happened, every dream, every vision, every prophetic fulfillment. So thank you all for joining us. Stay tuned. If you're not subscribed, subscribe. It's going to get better. David and Deborah, Divine Destiny. Thanks for tuning in.
Let's go.